Just 4 games of this 10th Premier League season for Leicester City to go. Today is a trip to the capital for the penultimate away day this campaign. There for us on commentary today is Tony Cottee and James Fielden, who has the all-important team news.
Good afternoon, Dan. Hi everybody. It's a bright but breezy, slightly blustery day here down by the Thames. Pitch in perfect condition. The Leicester coaches have just come out to start getting warmed up along with the goalkeepers here. The all-important team news is in as well. 2 changes for Leicester City compared to the side that started against Everton. Victor Christensen back in at left-back for Luke Thomas, who drops to the bench. And Dennis Pratt making his first Premier League start since the end of February. Wilfred Ndidi missing out for this one. He's also among the substitutes. James Maddison also starts in what is his 200th Leicester City appearance. Ricardo and Johnny Evans back on the bench as well. Daniel Everton is the goalkeeper in between the sticks for this one. Castagna, Fast, Soyuncu and Christensen across the back. Tielemans, Maddison and Soumaré in midfield. Pratt, Vardy and Barnes across the front. For Fulham, 2 changes as well. Kenny Tete in for Cedric Soares at right back. Harrison Reed replaces Sasha Lukic in midfield. They go with Leno in goal. Tete, Adebayo, Diop and Robinson across the back line. Reed and Joao Palhinha in midfield. Wilson, Kearney and Willian behind Carlos Vinicius in attack for Fulham, who are still without their top scorer, Alexander Mitrovic. 11 goals for him so far this season, but this is match number 8 of his 8-match ban after that incident with the referee at Old Trafford a couple of months ago now. But for Leicester City, the headline team news coming into the side, Christensen and Dennis Pratt.
Thank you very much, James. Yes, welcome along to Matchday Live here on LCFC TV with me, Dan Bates. Matt Elliott and Jerry Taggart, 2 Leicester City stalwarts, join me in the studio on the sofa this afternoon for this massive game. Yet again, they all are, Jerry, aren't they, at this stage of the season?
Yeah, again, you know, it's nervy times. I think the players will be going into this game hopefully with a degree of confidence after, you know, the Everton result, which, you know, by Dean Smith's own words, wasn't their best. But, you know, they remain unbeaten in 3 games, which is good. And so, yeah, and Fulham, you know, if you look at their team, they're missing a couple of their key players, and also probably their most experienced player in Tim Ream as well. It gives them that little bit of stability at the back. So they should be going into this with a degree of confidence. Obviously, Mitrovic missing as well is a big plus.
Yeah, and I think looking at the record as well as Fulham, I'm going to get my one stat of the day out early. Lost 7 of the last 9, and that's not just down to Mitrovic not being there as well. I mean, listen, that's an obvious bonus from Leicester's point of view. Of course it is, and Ream, as Jerry mentioned. But yeah, that's part and parcel of football, isn't it? Players missing, you know, on different occasions, but just generally, you know, Fulham are having a tough time of it. All being, you know, people are making out that they've lost a couple of games, you know, to Man City and Liverpool, and closely as well. So that, you know, sort of counter that with those points. But losing 7 out of 9 shows that things are not well all round generally. And, you know, Leicester have got to look at every possible positive they can, and go down there and not strut the stuff, but show a bit of attitude. You know, rather than go. Last thing you could do is go down there, be meek and mild and a little bit tame, and let Fulham get into their stride. They've got to be secure and solid, but take the game to Fulham as well at the right time.
Yes, if Leicester can make it 8 losses out of 10 for Fulham, it will mean that they go 3 points clear of the relegation zone as well. There's 2 important games later on today. We'll maybe talk about those a little bit later on. We've got plenty to get through here on Matchday Live this afternoon as we build up to the all-important kickoff at 3 o'clock. We're going to look back at that game, which happened a week ago. Jerry referencing there. Good point, bad point. We'll talk about that in just a moment. We'll take a closer look at Fulham under the tutelage, of course, of Marco Silva, as Matt rightly says, losing 7 of their last 9 in the league. And we'll look back at some classic goals as well, scored against today's opposition. Well, the team news recap really is that Victor Christensen is in today, as is Dennis Pratt. There's also a spot on the bench. You eagle-eyed viewers would have noticed Ricardo on the bench there in his pre-match press conference. Dean Smith gave an update on the fitness of the Portuguese right-back, as well as Kelechi Iheanacho.
The only thing fresh really is that Ricky Pereira has been training with us. He's only been doing part of the session, but he'll be training with us Saturday and Sunday as well. So that's a boost to the squad to have him back. Kel's responded to treatment, so not back for obviously this weekend, but may get him back for the last 2 games, which we wasn't hopeful of getting when he first, sustained the injury. But other than that, everybody's come through the game okay.
That was Dean Smith speaking on Thursday ahead of this game, of course. Today, that's a bonus, Jerry, isn't it? Yeah. Seeing Ricardo back, as sort of Dean was alluding to there. Maybe weren't expecting it to be this soon, but there he is on the bench, and he could play a pivotal role in these final 4 games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when you're looking at the team, first and foremost, the one area of the pitch that there is a bit of a dilemma going on is that left-back position. And so having Ricardo Pereira back on the bench, okay, might not feature today, but certainly with the next 3 games coming up, then you've got options, i.e. either sticking Timothy Castagne on the left-hand side where he's played many times before, and Ricardo at full-back, because the left-back position at the minute is a bit of a sticking point. It's a bit of an issue. And it needs to get sorted. And obviously having Ricardo and James Justin, been on the sidelines for however long, then a little glimmer of light with Ricardo being at least back on the bench today.
Yeah, it's been tough for Ricardo, hasn't it? I mean, you wish him well just on a personal point of view, because a top-class player, and we've met him. We've been fortunate to deal with him on the media side, and he comes across really well, really nice and personable, and he's a good-hearted individual. And he suffered, and Tags knows better than me how tough that is, going through the injury process, and so do you basically right now, unfortunately. But it's so frustrating, and it's been a stop-start for him. He's at the peak of his powers. He should be, really, and at his strongest point in his career, and he's haven't stuck through it. But hopefully he'll come through, because he's a top-class performer. And from a general point of view, it would be a huge boost. But to be honest, I don't expect him to have too much impact, probably, at this juncture, because he's been out for so long, and it took him a while before to get into top gear, shall we say. And in fact, he didn't quite get there before he received the other injury. But again, another bonus just having him in and around the place in the squad. And
just on the back of that, James Justin, I see taking part in that training session, so I don't know how far away he is from, but
he won't play this season.
He won't play.
No.
Right.
He's not involved in the actual squad as well, is he? He's not registered.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So that's
again, a bonus for him personally that he's back training.
It'd be interesting to see how Christensen does today. I mean,
will that bit of pressure?
Maybe as much as anything, Thomas coming in against Everton. I personally thought Luke Thomas did okay against Everton. I thought he was left exposed and under pressure from other areas that didn't get enough protection. But it was tough for him, pressure on him, like you speak about that. But Christian coming in, as much as Dean Smith probably looking at it, he's probably thinking perhaps he needs a little bit of a wake-up call as well. He's had his bedding-in period and he hasn't sort of pushed on from there. Christian might suddenly think, hang on, I've got to buck my ideas up. We'll see how he fares today.
Absolutely. Both of you were just referencing that game, of course, a week ago here at King Power Stadium against Everton. Let's remind ourselves how that game went, and boy, was it a frantic evening.
King Power Stadium has hosted a Premier League trophy lift, the Great Escapes of Magical European Nights, and was part of the route to the historic FA Cup win. But there haven't been too many games bigger than this one. Calvert-Lewin goes down to the challenge from Fast. The referee has pointed to the spot. He took a long look, and from the edge of the area, Michael Oliver points to the spot. Calvert-Lewin is over the ball and runs up to score for Everton. Fires the ball down the middle and into the roof of the net. His first goal in 10 Premier League appearances. Will land at the feet of Harvey Barnes, far side of the penalty area. Ball looped in. Soyuncu's header. Soyuncu's in! It was Bassey's header. It came to Soyuncu on the far side of the penalty area, right-footed like a seasoned striker. But delivering the ball straight to Tielemans, and Maddison straight to Vardy, who is in behind Jamie Vardy, around the goalkeeper, and doing what Vardy does so well over so many years for Leicester City, and they come from behind to take inside, and he's managed to feed it through to Harvey Barnes. Corner of the penalty area, down the left, cross, handball claimed, penalty given. In injury time, at the end of this first half, a huge chance for Leicester to take a 2-goal advantage. James Maddison, straight at Pickford. He stood his ground, he stood in the centre of the goal, and he's able to palm the ball away. McNeil decides to cross early, went fast with a glancing header. Will come to Iwobi, who scores. He got there before Luke Thomas as the ball dropped from height.
Matt, you were here, of course, on Monday for that game with Everton on co-commentary.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was me oohing in the background. And
as you always do. As you always do. We'll be expecting some of that from Tony Cottee as well today down at Craven Cottage. But it's a tough game to analyse, really. I think that draw with Everton, whether it's a good draw, whether it's a bad draw. Both teams maybe will feel lucky that they got a point, and also hard done by that they didn't get all three.
Yeah. Well, it was weird, wasn't it? It was bizarre. There was all sorts happening, but I think ultimately, it's more a positive point than a negative one, if that makes sense, or a point gained than 2 lost sort of thing. But listen, there were opportunities for Leicester. Of course there were, but I think overall Everton were worthy of their point, and they're probably the more frustrated at the two teams that they didn't get the win. Strange as that may sound, with Leicester 2-1 up with a penalty. It wasn't to be. It wasn't to be. But I thought a little bit concerning. I thought Leicester were a little bit far too open, too easily, and not just in the defensive back line. It was in the midfield area, which is I was really interested to see what lineup Dean Smith will go for today. So in midfield, it's Sumari and Tielemans to see how they fare, because I think they're going to, against Fulham away from home, I think they're going to have to sit in there a little bit more as a pair, rather than Tielemans venturing forward too often and leaving Sumari on his own, or vice versa, because they got exposed too easily at home, and they'll do so again away. So it may be very much a 2 there as we see the lineup on the screen.
I wasn't at the game, obviously, Dan, and I can only go on what I seen in the replays and in the highlights that I watched, and obviously yet again, you're talking about the goals being conceded, and the first goal, a bit of a mix-up from what Fast gets caught underneath the ball, trying to be ultra aggressive on the front foot when really should be stepping back and reading that clip ball, and obviously Timothy Castagna coming in and giving away the penalty. If you look at the Jamie Vardy goal, that's just pure good football, and so you look at Iwobi's goal. Luke Thomas gets out when the ball's in, but he turns his back again. That's a couple of occasions this season where, when players have been getting out to the ball for the strike, they've been turning their back when the strike comes in instead of standing strong. These balls don't hurt you. I've played with one of these balls, and I can promise you, if you take one full in the face, it will not hurt. I know it's nitpicking slightly with Luke Thomas, but it obviously leads to an Everton goal, and so can you avoid conceding that goal by standing up strong, taking the full force of that hit? So there's just, yet again, avoidable goals being conceded. One
thing Leicester did rely on was the goalkeeper, Matt. Daniel Everson had a fantastic game, didn't he, on Monday? Yeah,
he did. He didn't need it. Say from Iwobi in the first half, wasn't it? And later on, Decore in particular, amongst others. But they were saves that you don't necessarily expect the keeper to make, and he did. And
almost like a bonus then.
Yeah. To be fair, he's been exemplary actually, hasn't he? I mean, people sort of quite quick to pick on the negatives. All right, a couple of times his goal kicks have gone straight out of play, but that's because he's trying to hit a very precise, specific area. It's a small detail really, but his goalkeeping in terms of his shot stopping, shall we say, in particular, has been top notch. This is the Iwobi one. This again though, Leicester too easily exposed, too narrow there, allowed to run through Everton. Who's it there? Sumari doesn't go with the runner on that occasion. Good reaction, save. Didn't have too much time to think about it, but it was in the right position, covered well. Iwobi's save was excellent. The first one, he shouldn't have an opportunity to save that, to tell you the truth, and even I think Daniel himself admitted that. That was a decent block, yeah, at a crucial time. This was the key one.
Great save.
If that goes in, so hard to get down that low that quickly and still have a strong arm stroke wrist. Sometimes you see it, I don't know, David De Gea yesterday against West Ham. That was an easier save, but he couldn't even technically get it correct. But that was key then. Everton score then.
And it's not easy,
on
for
the floor.
Everton, for a keeper, when your team keep conceding goals game in, game out, to stay that confident in your own ability. Now, I'm not saying, obviously, there's mistakes leading the goals. There's not a lot he can do about the goals that are conceded. But as a collective, as a team, then obviously that affects your confidence. So for him to be pulling out, to be coming out with performances like that, ever since he's come in, to the side, it's commendable on his side. And so he's going to need another big performance today, you would like to think.
He's not getting dragged down by the
Exactly.
situation, is he?
And that's
he's revelling in the opportunity.
And that
basically.
is not easy to keep that, have that confidence and self-belief when your team are conceding as many goals as Leicester are.
Speaking of confidence, at the other end of the pitch, Jamie Vardy seems to have his mojo back. 2 goals in his last 2 games.
Yeah, and it's weird, isn't it? All of a sudden, he's looked, I wouldn't say back to his absolute peak, but he looks sharp enough, doesn't he? He was still running the channels in the late 70th minute and late and beyond that against Everton. Still a problem for their 2 centre halves when used in a certain way.
That's interesting what Dean Smith says. It looks like he's got the bit between his teeth. We know that when Jamie Vardy does have that, Jerry, he's a hell of a player.
People have been writing him off, and we've all been saying, you just never write this guy off. Now, I don't know what's happened, but I'll tell you what, talk about timing. The form he showed in the last few games since he's come back into the side has been exceptional. It looks like he's lost a couple of seasons on his years, but I tell you, he's still got it, and he's shown it at the minute, and obviously that is vital for the runner.
How well did he take that goal?
Well, it's typical. It's a typical Jamie Vardy goal. The timing of his run, obviously the pass was perfect. His first touch for me was top drawer. His first touch when that ball comes through here, look at the way he gets it out of his feet, takes him away from the defender, Michael Keane, sorry, and then the rest is just pure Jamie Vardy class. As soon as he gets that first touch away, he's away from Keane. You know what's coming next. Keeper comes out.
It's actually only 3 touches he does, and and he's run almost half the length of the pitch.
Yeah, no, Jerry mentions there. Both touches were excellent, and the third to slot it away, even that wasn't bad because Keane was trying to cover back on the line. But yeah, it was excellent, wasn't it? But as much as anything, it was his awareness in tandem with James Maddison, of course. Like they link up so well. But Vardy's there. He's just read the situation. Iwobi's a slack pass. I think Tielemans intercepted. Yeah. Bang! He's on his way. He knows where he's starting to move already. He's ahead of, in terms of reaction time, the 2 centre halves of Everton there, and that was there were crucial elements to it all through, but that instigated it.
What was more impressive was after the first touch, he accelerated away from Keane with pace, and you could see Keane trying to grab his arm and he couldn't get a hold of him. So it's still there. He still has it, and he is still vital to the squad.
I think you've seen performances from Jamie, and it's had sort of a knock-on effect because he's been in that situation a couple of times. And normally, you put your house on him, don't you? Yeah. And he himself has almost looked gobsmacked at how poor an effort he's come up with. He's like, hang on a sec, that's not what I do, and the whole crowd sort of bamboozled by it. But I think sometimes Leicester's style of football, not so long ago, was not suitable for Jamie too often there. Leicester were playing balls that were ideal for him 4, 5, 6 times in the Everton game. Not a while ago, that was only happening once, maybe twice at best. He was isolated, he was getting very few touches. He was a main feature of Leicester's game on Monday night. And
hopefully he's the main feature again, of course. Today, let's concentrate again at the other end of the pitch, this time with central defender Wout Faes. I caught up with him this week at Seagrave to preview the game against Everton.
Obviously, it's very important to get the confidence back, and I think you feel and see that game after game it's getting a little better, and everyone is very aware of the situation we're in, and is doing everything they can to help the team, to help the club to get out of this situation.
Well, 3 games unbeaten now, following that draw against Everton. I know when Dean Smith came in, he spoke about getting confidence back. Do you feel that in the group now?
Yeah, obviously. I think with the unbeaten run we are in, I think that's something he really hammers on too, because there was some disappointment after the Everton game that we didn't get the win, but he straight away said that, yeah, now it's 3 games that we're unbeaten. Since he's in, it's 4 games, so 3 out of 4 unbeaten. That's very good, but obviously it's very important to get the confidence back, and I think you feel and see that game after game it's getting a little better, and that's something we need.
I'm sure that you could have looked back at the Leeds game and the Everton game in the same way. You could easily have won them, but also could easily have lost them
obviously,
as well. So it's important that at least a point was taken in each.
Yeah, I agree. I think Dan Iverson made some great saves, especially last Monday. He really kept us into the game, but as a player you always want to win, and you still felt that, yeah, that belief that we could get a win, and that's why we were disappointed. I think it's a good thing we were disappointed, but yeah, we have to continue in this way, and next Monday is a very important one.
Speaking of confidence, Daniel Everson must be at the very top, because he has pulled off some unbelievable saves in these last couple of games.
Yeah, I agree. It's what the gaffer said. We've protected him quite well before, but yeah, last Monday he was quite exposed at moments, but he really stood up to it and faced the shots. So yeah, that's for us something very important.
Obviously all the games are massive at the moment, so it's another huge game against Fulham on Monday. What are your thoughts ahead of that one?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's a massive game, but we have to look game per game, and I think Monday night can be a very good opportunity for us. Monday afternoon, sorry, can be a very good opportunity for us to get some points. I think if we are confident, we play our game, we go 100%. There's certainly ways to get a result in Fulham, which is a good team, but I think we can compete with them, and that's what we're going to do.
They're struggling slightly. They're on a poor run. There's a number of factors for that, whether it's suspension or injuries, but you probably go there more confident than they are at the moment.
Maybe, but I still think it's a good team. They've proven this year that they are a good team with a good manager, so difficult ground to go, I think. But I think we're preparing this game very well, and we will be ready for it.
What's the mood been like amongst the camp in the last 3 weeks? You've already spoken about the confidence being there, but it's about reiterating that, I guess, and because it is so pressurised, I imagine, at the moment.
Yeah, the confidence is everything. I think players play better when they have confidence. Trainings are made to have fun, to some games, some small-sided games, to really get the competing sense again, and I think that's something good. And then the togetherness obviously is something very important, which the coach really brings into the group, and I think that's important.
And John Terry and the coaching staff as well, of course, obviously a fantastic central defender himself. What have you learned from him, do you think, in your short time?
Yeah, it's small things in training, do body positioning, decision making, even with the ball, because that's what you say. He's got the experience to speak, and then obviously if you can pick up small things, small video sessions with him, it's very good and very nice for me to have a person like this.
4 games to go between now and the end of the season. It goes without saying, but obviously the group, yourself, every single one of the players cares deeply about the club and cares deeply about getting out of this situation.
Yeah, that's logic. In my opinion, I think everyone is very aware of the situation we're in, and is doing everything they can to help the team, to help the club to get out of this situation as soon as possible. But I think it only happens with working hard, staying together, and then after all, I think it'll come.
That was Wout Fast previewing this game with Fulham, of course. Kick-off is just over half an hour away. Wout Fast is in the starting 11, as he has been for the last couple of games, of course. Alongside Kaglar Soyuncu, Victor Christensen comes in at left-back. Dennis Pratt also returns to the starting 11. Jerry, what have you made of the Wout Fast Kaglar Soyuncu partnership that we have seen really since Dean Smith came in?
Yeah, it looks as if they do look a bit more solid. I think it's is it 4 goals in the last 3 games they've conceded. But I think Soyuncu coming back in has been a massive help for everybody in that back line. He's looked like the main man, the guy who wants to take the bull by the horns and drag the team forward in the right way. And obviously, what Fass, you know, was he just listened to him in that interview. He obviously cares and he's trying his best, but he's still got little bits of his game that he needs to learn from the right way. I think both of the players, in general, do lack a more experienced centre half, i.e., someone like a Johnny Evans to be up this big. But in saying that, I think since the pair of them have started playing together, they do look more solid than they have done in recent games.
And we saw a goal from one of them as well, Kaglar Soyuncu, of course, against Everton, which is always a bonus when defenders can get on the score sheet.
Yeah, no, I was just mulling things over myself today and looking back at when Leicester won the Premier League there. I saw a clip on social media and where's Morgan, and he chipped in with his share. Robert Hoof, of course, at vital times, and it's necessary really for goals to come from different quarters, and it's nice to see the centre halves contributing. You know, I think Fass, I mean, he hasn't scored, has he, from memory? Not in the right end. Sorry about that one, Wout. But he goes forward with a bit of purpose at set pieces. You know, he tries to make a difference. Soyuncu also as well. So
he got the assist, didn't he?
Yeah.
For the Soyuncu goals by getting up and making sure he won.
Yeah, indirectly. I'm not sure it was like guided towards him.
Yeah,
it was a header into the area.
It's an assist,
wasn't it? Yeah.
But he made sure he won it.
Yeah, exactly. Those two up there causing problems, and Leicester need assistance from any department or every department possible, don't they? So, but yeah, no, I like them. That they've gelled better than I thought they would. Without
Similar
doubt.
type players?
Yeah. On the face of it, they're both quite sort of robust, aren't they? And a little bit sort of rawness about how they play. And I like it. They're aggressive and they try and be positive in the way they defend, but keeping a balance on it, as Jerry's mentioned there, just keeping the reins in a little bit, because you don't want to get sucked out of position or drawn out of position too often. And if you do, you've got to be definite that you're going to come out with the right result. But generally, I'd be interested to see which one would, if Johnny Evans was properly fit, how that would work. And well, they probably complement each other, Johnny Evans and another. But if that isn't to materialise, fair play to them. They've done well, because I thought communication might be a little bit of a problem as well, not just in a language sense, but just because they're both, so they've been around for a while, but Wout Faes is playing for Belgian national team, but they're both learning their trade a little bit. But they've done well, and Soyuncu, without a doubt, has made a difference.
Yeah, I think, just going on the back of what Matt said, you're not going to hear any complaints from me and him about their aggressive nature of defending. It's all about understanding when you can be aggressive and when you've got to hold your hands up and say, there's nothing I can do here. Or you have to take up a different position on the pitch to make sure that the worst case scenario doesn't happen. I think sometimes it's easy for defenders to realise or to get caught up thinking that they are the last line of defence, when you've got to understand that you do actually have a keeper behind you and he can come into play, and you as a defender, you can help your keeper by making sure you're in a good position that if a shot does come in, it can only go one side of the goal or the other. And I think sometimes that gets misinterpreted from the inexperience of the pair of them at times. But you're not going to hear any complaints about the aggressive nature of their play.
We can see Kaglar Soyuncu sporting somewhat of a black eye there from that incident.
He looks the part today, doesn't he?
In the Everton game. Fair play to him though,
aggression
for the way that he's come in, almost from the cold, really. Since Dean Smith has come in, and he's shown real grit and determination.
Well, it makes it all the more bizarre that he didn't feature more regularly or more often throughout the rest of the season. Certain issues, I don't know whether it was sort of mentality-wise or whichever it was. He didn't play very often, and you thought maybe his time at Leicester is just going to drift out and drift away, and he's disappear into the sunset or whatever. But he's come back in, and it does on his performances so far, without being inch perfect, it does sort of beg a belief that he hasn't featured more before. But hopefully better late than never.
Hopefully so. Let's hear from the man that has brought him back into the team, of course. Dean Smith now leading the Foxes. He spoke to the media on Thursday and he started by reacting to that point with Everton.
Well, I just think we made the game a little bit too open and gave too many chances away ourselves. In the games that we've had previously, we've created good chances and not give too many away. And that was my disappointment, that we'd give some big chances away and not protected our goalkeeper enough. Our goalkeeper made some good saves as well, and he had to. So that defensive organisation probably was the bit that disappointed me the most.
And how crucial will Jamie Vardy be for the next 4 games, given back-to-back goals? He seems right back in form and enjoying himself.
Yeah, well, I think people will have seen in his last performances, or his last few performances, the hunger and the desire he's got, the work rate. The fact that he's, as he will put it, that his legs are still there and his brain's certainly still there. So we're really pleased that he's back scoring goals for us. He's got his first away one at Leeds, got his first home one at home on Monday. I'm lost with days with all the games that we have. But yeah, we're really pleased that he's in a good place at the moment.
You're obviously, I'm sure, having to keep an eye on everything that's going on around you with those other teams down there alongside you. Given how many games we've got left, it could all go down to the final game of the season. You've experienced that before. Are you desperate to avoid that this time around?
I wouldn't say desperate, but I'd like to avoid it. I'd like to get it, get safe as soon as we possibly could. We could only take one game at a time and see where that leaves us. The draw against Everton, would like to have had a win, so would Everton, but it moved us 2 places up the table. Such is our goal difference, that probably gives us a point head start on the rest of the teams down there. But we've got to concentrate on getting a better performance than it was against Everton defensively, and I think if we get that, we can go and get a good result.
I've just been speaking to Wout Faz, and he was talking about your man management style and the confidence you've brought to players. Are you seeing that out on the training pitch and on the pitch, the confidence growing?
Well, I watched the game against Bournemouth before we came in, and the players looked like they lacked a little bit of belief and confidence and looked lethargic. I think we've managed to get rid of that. I feel the players are in a better place now. I think the performances have shown that, and the attacking intent has shown that as well. And that takes work, and we're working every day to try and do that. And what's pleased me the most has been the care that the players have shown, just in wearing the shirt, but also wanting to play and getting in the team and doing well. And that's been shown every day in training.
That was Dean Smith there speaking ahead of this game with Fulham this afternoon. A reminder, he's made a couple of changes to his starting 11 for the trip to Craven Cottage. Dennis Pratt comes in that midfield area, we think possibly on the right-hand side. And Victor Christensen as well coming in at left-back. It was interesting, Matt, to hear from Dean Smith there, obviously talking about that Everton game.
Yeah.
Leicester weren't great, in his own words, possibly the worst they've been since he came in, but they didn't lose the game, and that's vital, isn't it?
In that instance, it was certainly, yeah, because we spoke about how valuable that point was or wasn't, and I think ultimately it very much so was, because it stopped Everton obviously gaining the advantage, but it got them out of the bottom 3. Psychologically, that made a difference. But I suppose your point is you're saying it hasn't happened too often this season, really, that Leicester have not played well and got something out of the game. As you sort of referred to there, Dean Smith, at times they look quite dangerous and threatening going forward, but they were spending too much time in the wrong half of the pitch, weren't they? Because, yeah, as you said there, they did get exposed, and Everton were direct, and I thought Leicester fell into the trap a little bit, trying to play in certain areas, and Everton were pressing and working hard and being physical and aggressive, and but at the same time you've got to remember there were 2 teams playing for their lives basically. So you know, it was always going to be a tough game. They've come through it and lived to fight another day, and today being one of them. But I think the changes make sense as well there.
Yeah, what do you make of
Dennis Pratt
coming?
Yeah, I
He
think
deserves his chance, doesn't he?
I think that's a really good call from Dean Smith. Obviously, Fulham are going to play a different style of football to Everton, and obviously the full-backs will need help, a bit more help. Probably not a part of Teddy's game that he's probably best known for is getting back. But with Dennis Pratt, you know what you're going to get from 8 times out of 10, and he's more than capable of supplying passes and making forward runs and making runs in behind, stretching the game, which I think is important. Where Tete, I think, is more of a player that likes to get the ball to feet and then try and create stuff from there, whereas Pratt will make runs in behind and try and stretch.
I think Pratt's got to be quite clever about his game today, though, because Robinson, isn't it, on the left back? I mean, he can shift. Yeah, and Pratt's not going to cause him too many problems. You wouldn't imagine in 1v1 situations, but if he comes off that wide right area, time to runs, linking up, giving and going, perhaps with Vardy and Maddison, etc.
And obviously defensively, as Matt said, Robinson loves getting forward. So he's going to have a massive role today, Dennis Pratt, without the ball.
Let's take a closer look then at today's opposition. Ahmed Shubel from The Athletic, as well as their manager, Marco Silva, of course, spoke to the press this week. Not many at the start of the season would have had Fulham down to have quite as good a campaign as they've had. The last 2 times the Cottagers were in the Premier League, they were relegated after just 1 season. But thanks to the goals of Alexander Mitrovic and the management of Marco Silva, it's been a season to remember.
It will be a really dangerous game. As I said after the Liverpool match in that evening, I said that probably the next game against Leicester will be even more difficult than the City against Liverpool. Of course, people that probably doesn't understand what I was saying. I'm not saying that Leicester is better team than the other two. Is not what I'm saying. But in terms of they are fighting for their lives. How they came here, probably they came to play in the different one than the other 2 teams they play against us, and of course will be a tough one, a good test, another one for us. Another good test for us with Cottage with our fans, and of course we have to play as better as you can to win the game, because it will be a tough one. A team that is really strong in counter-attack. We are going to have the command of the game, or we are trying to have the command of the game, of course, and they are strong. Vardy in any moment of the game can punish you as well, with the support from players like Barnes or Maddison, and they are a good side, but fighting for their lives in a position that they wouldn't expect to be, but of course will be a tough one.
Fulham was still putting up a fight against these teams. There were a soft penalty against Liverpool away from getting a decent draw out of that. Manchester City, Julian Alvarez one strike was the difference in that game as well. But outside of that, I think Fulham gave a very good account of themselves. They got in, those, considering those are two of the probably most informed teams in the league right now. Fulham didn't look much of a beat off, and considering how important those players are that they were without, it's imagine what they could have done with the full squad.
A mix of injuries and suspensions to key players means Fulham have won just twice in the league since the middle of February. The one they've missed the most is, of course, striker Alexander Mitrovic, who this afternoon serves the last of his 8-match ban for pushing a referee.
They have Carlos Vinicius, who is a striker of a similar profile in terms of being a big sort of target man, but I don't think he has. Firstly, he's not as good a finisher as Mitrovic, obviously, but also Mitrovic does so much in terms of dropping off to link the play, and I think Vinicius tries that, but he's also not as good as Mitrovic as that. So it's a bit difficult to kind of just sort of put Vinicius in a situation. And to be fair, you got a goal against Man City. He scored in the other crucial games against Brentford and Chelsea as well. So he's by no means sort of not. He's obviously of the level, but he's just not quite Alexander Mitrovic. Alternatively, Fulham have tried what they called a Reed in a sort of a false 9 role against Aston Villa. They tried Dan James up front against Everton, which actually worked quite well. So there are a number of options. I think now they've got, I think Silva's a bit more comfortable with Vinicius up front now, but they've also got the ability to catch teams on the break with much more mobile profile of forwards like Manor Solomon, Willian and Harry Wilson coming into the front line as well.
Thanks to Ahmed Shubel there from The Athletic. How much of a bonus, Jerry, is the fact that Alexander Mitrovic isn't playing for us today?
Well, obviously it's a bonus. He scored in the reverse fixture earlier on in the season. He didn't do a lot in the game, but he popped up with a goal, and I think that's the biggest part of his game. He's got a really good football brain. You've just heard the guy there speaking about him, where he brings players into the team, and obviously he's our top goal scorer. Along with, as we've mentioned, is it Pereira as well? Andreas Pereira's out, and Tim Ream out today, and maybe one or two others. So, you know, there's a collective bonus that, you know, they're missing a few key players today, and that's probably one of the reasons why you've seen their form dip in recent times. I couldn't be sure about that because I haven't followed. Well, I followed the results, but I don't know what, you know, their teams have been throughout, you know, the recent games that they haven't won. But by all accounts, have you heard again, it's been by the odd goal, so they haven't been blown away by teams. But definitely having Mitrovic out of the team today means that it gives the defence, number one, an opportunity, because what Mitrovic does probably better than any other centre forward is he occupies centre halves and he creates havoc in and around the box. So that is definitely a bonus.
And he finishes as well. Yeah. I mean, he's more clinical than Vinicius. Vinicius is not to be taken lightly, has his own attributes without a doubt. He's a handful himself, but Mitrovic in a different way, a little bit clever, a bit more craft about his game, and obviously an eye for goal. And like Jerry mentions there, as a centre half, you're not going to broadcast it publicly, but you have a little sigh of relief that he hasn't made his comeback just yet. Because it does make it tough for defenders, and he's been huge for Fulham, hasn't he? But it's not just solely that. Like you say, Pereira, a few players out, all reasons for Fulham's poor form, and also the season's tailing off for them a bit. They're 10th now, a little bit of an edge off this season. I know they can use that as an inspiration to say, right, we need to finish strongly. All teams say that, but in reality, it's difficult to have that fire in your eyes, if you like, when there isn't too much to play for. Again, I'm just trying to create another positive for this.
Let's check in at the capital then. Our man Tony Cottee is on co-commentary duty for us down at Craven Cottage. Good afternoon to you, Tony. What are you expecting today?
Afternoon, boys. Yeah, I'm expecting a really good game, and I do feel it's one of those games. We always talk about must-win games, and you get that feeling, I think, sort of sitting in the press lounge beforehand, talking to the Leicester fans while I was walking towards the stadium. They feel this is one of those games. 4 games left, and there's 2 very, very difficult games, we know that. But you look at Fulham and potentially the last game against West Ham, if they're in a cup final, that could be a good game for Leicester as well. So you do feel, Dan, that this is a must-win game for Leicester. They've got to get the 3 points today.
You're right in thinking, Tony, you never played against Fulham in your long career, so you won't have any memories of Craven Cottage, really?
No, certainly not as a player, Dan. No, I didn't. Nothing disrespectful to Fulham, but you know, they wasn't the club they are now. They was playing in the lower leagues, the 4th tier, the 3rd tier. I just didn't play against them, and even in the cup, I think we played them in the late 90s in the quarterfinals of the League Cup, and I was injured for that game. So just never played against Fulham, and James sitting next to me was asking me how many goals I scored against Fulham. The answer is 0.
Thank you very much to you, Tony Cottee. We'll hear from you again in around about 10 minutes time, of course, on co-commentary duty for this massive game down at Craven Cottage. Let's remind ourselves of today's team news. Dean Smith, from a Leicester City point of view, has made 2 changes to the side that drew with Everton a week ago. Daniel Everson is in goal. One of those 2 changes is Victor Christensen at left back. Then it's Wout Faes, Kaglar Soyuncu and Timothy Castagna. A midfield of Buba Samare and Yuri Tielemans with Barnes, Maddison. The other change, Dennis Pratt, supporting Jamie Vardy. From a Fulham point of view, this is how Marco Silva lines his team up. They've got Bernd Leno in goal, Robinson, Diop, Adarabioyo and Tete across the back 4. Polinia and Reed holding in midfield with Willian, Kearney and Wilson in behind the man that we've just been talking about there, Carlos Vinicius. We've got about 5 minutes left here to build up to this huge game today. We've got plenty more, though, to come on LCFC TV over the coming, weeks, really, for you. And there's plenty to watch and listen to, including a podcast, of course, with these two, with David Nugent. You can get that wherever you listen to your podcasts, of course. You can also watch it. Rather, it's with Ewan Roberts.
I was going to say the Nugent one.
Yeah,
Still
Ewan Roberts.
hanging around, is it?
And also, of course, we'll be here at King Power Stadium for another massive game on a Monday evening. That's a 7 o'clock start for Matchday Live and 8 o'clock kick-off next week. 5 minutes to go, Jerry, really, until we hand over to the commentary team. 15 minutes until kick-off. There's no underestimating, again, how big a game this is, just as the last 5, 6, 7, 8 games have been.
Obviously, goes without saying. And for me, I'll go back to basics, and can we keep a clean sheet? For me, is the most important thing today. You've seen the form the forward players are in, and you expect them to score against most teams on any given day. Can we keep a clean sheet? Now, the last 3 fixtures between Fulham and Leicester have been won by the away team as well, so there's a little start for you. And so, if somehow they can keep a clean sheet down, then I give us a really good chance of winning this game, because otherwise they're going to have to score 2 or 3 goals to win it away from home. Matt?
Yeah, no, just like mulling over different permutations there. I didn't realise you'd finished, to be honest.
Well, it's just
from Fulham's point of view, I'm thinking that Leicester have got enough talent in that side to go and get themselves a goal or two, can go and hurt Fulham. You would think, on going by their sort of week in, week out performances. Tillemans, Maddison, Barnes needs to step up from the Everton game, Vardy, amongst others. Samari's talented, Pratt can produce as well. So there's plenty of ability and potential going forward. My major concern is, and Dean Smith's mentioned it there about on the back of what Jerry's saying, about the openness, not just defensive unit in the midfield as well. So just doing that job in there, because Fulham quite strong in that midfield area. Paulini has been one of the top performers, really, hasn't he? Through in the whole Premier League. Kearney has ability, etc. Out wide, the fullbacks are going to get forward, tracking back. Lots of things to consider. But for me, it's just keeping stability at the back line. But primarily, the area that worries me most is defensively in midfield. Because if you don't get on top of things there, then you're exposed defensively. And I think it's huge that Tillemans and Samari develop this understanding and on a defensive front of things.
So a big day for those two then?
I think so.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you can speak about the defensive frailties, conceding the goals, that is, and also the lack of goals when you're going forward, but that, obviously going forward, that hasn't been the case in recent games, and it all stems from the middle of the park. It's as simple as that. So to get that bit right today, they've got a great chance.
I don't want to be negative, it just worries me a little bit. Sometimes it suits Tillemans better, because he's from deeper, he can pick his passes, he can feed Maddison, etc. But it's not his natural game, defending.
But Pratt can drop in there.
Pratt can, drop in the help without a doubt. That's half the reason he's in there. But it's not Samari's natural game either. You saw it with the give and go against Everton. If they can be switched on and do that job in there, I fancy Leicester to get something.
Yep, let's hope they do. We're about 10 minutes now away from kick-off down at Craven Cottage for another massive game for Leicester City as they bid to stay in the Premier League. Coming up here on LCFC Radio, we've got full commentary, of course. Don't go anywhere. It could be another massive day for the Foxes.
Because memories never fade, no matter how long. We'll still remember the moments of excitement and the impressions of Thailand. Amazing Thailand. Now even more amazing.
Lamiet is the belief that perfection lies within the details, where the finest ingredients deserve the finest craftsmanship. In every pursuit of perfection, there is passion and perseverance, where attention to detail inspires a masterpiece that's balanced and in harmony. This is the Lamiet philosophy, brewed into every drop of Chang beer. This is the taste of Thai perfection. Chang beer. We brew friendship.
Hello, good afternoon everyone, welcome along here to Craven Cottage in the heart of West London. We're on the banks of the River Thames for live coverage of another massive Premier League game for Leicester City as they travel to Fulham. Well, Leicester's mini unbeaten run under Dean Smith now stands at 3 games, and a result here of any kind would surely be a bonus, though a win would be a massive step with just 3 games to go after this one. While last Monday's draw against Everton might have been frustrating, Leicester have their Premier League fate in their own hands and come to London one final time this season, looking for their first win here since the game at West Ham in their final match before the World Cup. It was also that game at London Stadium where the Foxes last kept a clean sheet. 19 games have passed since then. Fulham have understandably seen a drop-off in results since Alexander Mitrovic received his 8-game ban, and today's the final match of that suspension, which is good for Leicester at least. Marco Silva's team have still had a fantastic campaign after promotion and are hoping for a top half finish after several years of yo-yoing up and down from the Championship. They arrive here off the back of 3 successive defeats, the last of which came at Anfield by a 0-0 5 days ago. 2 changes for Fulham today. Kenny Tete and Harrison Reed in for Cedric Suarez and Sasha Lukic. Leno's their goalkeeper. Tete, Adebayo, Diop and Robinson the back line. Reed and Joao Palhinha sit in front. Wilson on the right, Willian off the left. Tom Kenny, the captain, in behind Carlos Vinicius. For Leicester, 2 changes as well. Victor Christensen in at left back for Luke Thomas. Dennis Pratt comes in for his first Premier League start since the end of February. Wilfred Ndidi is the other man to make way. James Maddison starts for his 200th Leicester appearance. Ricardo and Johnny are back on the bench. Leicester line up with Everson in goal, Castagna, Fast, Soyuncu and Christensen across the back. Tielemans and Soumare just in front. Pratt ahead of them. Maddison, Vardy and Barnes all in attack. We'll see exactly how Leicester line up once this one gets underway. We've seen Pratt operate as a 10 or wide on the right hand side before as well. Tony Cottee alongside me, the players walking across the field here and the referee ready to walk out with them as well, just waiting for the signal. A massive day here, no doubt about that, everyone knows it. The team's marching out in front of us now as they come down the tunnel. London calling for Leicester, who sit outside the relegation zone on goal difference only. A win here would be a huge step towards survival at this stage of the Premier League season. They're up against a Mitrovic-less Fulham side that have lost 7 of their last 9 games. And Tony, it's a bit of a weird old stadium at the moment. That stand still being constructed on the far side, a huge gap of fans in the middle. In years gone by, you often get that full stand away to the left-hand side, full of travelling fans. Just 2,000 Leicester fans in one corner of it now, but they're going to have to really get behind their team for this one, aren't they?
James, yeah, good afternoon everyone. Good afternoon, James. Yeah, looking forward to this game. And the Leicester fans situated away to our left. in full cry already, and they know how important this game is. The players know how important this game is. You mentioned the stadium, James. It's come a long way, hasn't it? I remember coming here as a kid back in the mid-1970s and that Fulham lower league team. I come to watch my team West Ham play, and there was a third, fourth division club, and you just didn't have the facilities. The Cottage was still here. This stand we're sitting in was still here because it's listed. But what a stand opposite us. Not quite fully open yet, as you say, but what a great setting. And I've already mentioned to you, James, look at that pitch in front of us. Yeah. Absolutely amazing for this time of year.
Yeah, I mean, that was the first thing that struck me when I came into the stadium a few hours ago. The state of the playing surface here. They've reclaimed some of the sand from the River Thames and have built backwards onto it here. This stadium is going to be nearly 30,000 when it's done. For the 20 or so thousand who are here today, hoping their side can win. We, of course, hoping Leicester can get themselves another victory after they beat Wolves a couple of Saturdays ago. Tony, what do you make of the Leicester team today? 2 changes. We've seen in the back Christensen in for Thomas and Dennis Pratt, an attacking change in for Ndidi.
Yeah, I think Dennis Pratt deserved this opportunity. You know, did well, didn't he, in the last game? And I like him as a player. I think what he does do, he gives you that work rate, that consistency. Defensively, he gives you options as well. I think the boys in the studio touched on it. Anthony Robinson is a real flying machine. You know, that's where Leicester, for me, have got to be really, really careful when he gets forward. Christensen, he's done really well in his first season at Leicester, hasn't he? And probably just that little tiny bit more experience maybe than Luke Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be my next question for you. What is it that has made Fulham so good this season? You know, you often see that the winners of the Championship come up and don't tend to struggle. You know, they've had the best team, they've had the most time to prepare. What has made them the force they've been?
Well, I think this time they didn't bring in the 10 or 12 players they brought in before, because that was a disaster. They ended up going straight back down. There's been more emphasis on some of the players that actually got them promoted to the Premier League. I think that's important as well. You have to keep the core of the team, and the players they have brought in, there's been some good additions. And of course, Mitrovic, I know he's not playing today, but his goals contribution has really, really helped. They're just a really good team, Fulham. This is a great setting, one of the best settings probably in England to play your football, and they've now got a team that represents the fans, and they deserve great credit to be where they are, James, at this stage of the season, having just got promoted. It's a phenomenal achievement by Fulham. They're 10th position, 45 points. It doesn't matter today, you know, even if they lose 8-0, it doesn't matter, because they've already got their situation for next season. They're in the Premier League, but they won't roll over, trust me.
We'll take that 8-0.
Yeah, we'll take the 8-0, but this is the English Premier League. You know what that means. No team rolls over. This will not be easy for Leicester today.
Yeah, and I guess they've got a real good mix in midfield, haven't they, as they have today. Reed, really good passing player, really cultured on the ball, and Joao Pellegrini, who loves to snap into a challenge.
Yeah, he's had a good season, as he, Pellegrini. I actually like Tom Kearney. I think he's been a bit unfortunate, not played regularly this season, but he's got his chance. He's the captain. He's been at the club a long time. He's a really, really good footballer. Harrison Reed, you know what you get with him. You get stuck in. He can play as well. You know, I don't think Leicester will do it, but if they were to stand off Fulham, they can pass you to death, and they will pass it around and score goals. It's so important Leicester get amongst them.
2 captains in the centre circle with today's match referee, who's Rob Jones, assisted by Ian Huston and Wade Smith. 4th Commissioner Peter Banks. Jared Gillett is a few miles down the road at Stockley Park as the VAR. As we've seen all the Premier League games this weekend, the 2 sets of players here gathering around the centre circle to mark the coronation of His Majesty the King Charles III on Saturday. Of course, just across town from here. Now ahead of kick-off, everyone will stand around us here for the national anthem. Joining in here at Craven Cottage, atmosphere ready to go, game ready to start, a game that Leicester Leicester really, really have to win, especially with those games against Liverpool and Newcastle on the horizon. You don't want to be having to go to Newcastle especially and pick up all 3 points given the season that they're having. Liverpool in sparkling form as well. This a really, really big chance for Leicester City. It will be Fulham to get us off and underway here. Joao Palhinha standing over the ball in the centre circle. They've got Kearney, Willian and Vinicius ready to attack this ball on the left-hand side when it's inevitably lumped forward. Dean Smith standing on the far side. And we're just waiting for a referee to sort himself out here, who's got a bit of a technological issue at the start of the game here. So a bit of a delay to kick off.
They're so busy doing their warm-up, James. I think that's the problem. They're so busy doing the warm-up, they forget to turn their gear on and that. He's over the far side. He's only had about 3 days to get ready for it.
Ref's got his guns out.
Oh, I know. It does make you laugh sometimes.
He's having to be rewired here, so a slight pause before kick-off. So the players being made to wait. I think if you're one of the two managers involved, you're pretty annoyed about this, aren't you? I mean, everything is geared towards 3 o'clock. You work backwards in terms of your timings for absolutely everything, and then the one person who's meant to be, you know, neutral and on top of everything in all this is the man that's delaying everything.
But it's not just the managers, it's the players as well. You know, we're watching the players now. They're standing around, don't quite know what to do. You just got to wait for the referee to sort himself out. But it is frustrating when you get a delay. But you can't play football without a referee, James.
Well, what it does give is an opportunity for a few latecomers to take their seats here at the Cottage. Just seeing Quintop take his seat in the director's box as it is away to our left-hand side here in the Cottage, in the corner, which is situated almost on top of the players' tunnel here. That's where all the VIPs go here at Craven Cottage. Yuri Tielemans just doing a few more shuttle runs ahead of the start, and now referee Rob Jones is ready. He gets himself a cheer as he makes his way out onto the field of play.
Ironic applause, I think that's called.
Yeah. Hopefully we won't be mentioning him too much this afternoon after the campaign that a number of these referees have had. Still not quite ready. Sorting out his shorts now. We are a couple of minutes delayed. It is the only game kicking off at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Games later at Brighton, they take on Everton, and the huge game at the City Ground between Forest and Southampton. Now he's ready. Now we can start. The time is 2 minutes past 3 here in the English capital. He's counted up the numbers and we're underway. Leicester City taking on Fulham here at